Your first step is to hoop your stabilizer and stitch out the placement for your hot pad. Next, you want to place your batting to cover the entire placement stitches. I use 2 layers, and I'm going to stitch the next step, which will kind of basting stitch this down, and then I'm going to trim around the edge. After tacking down the batting, I trim around it. You do not have to do that, but I do simply because I find that it's easier to get a nice flat result when you finish your project and you turn it inside out. But I've seen tutorials and I've seen other people not trim that. You can if you want, I do. Now you need to grab your fabric for the front of the hot pad. Mine is a white cotton for Santa's beard. And I pinned it down at the corners to get it nice and tight. And now I'm going to stitch the beginning of the face for this one. If you're stitching a different design, the next steps might be something different. If it's a strawberry, it'll probably be strawberry seeds, or it might be a face, or if you added a monogram or a name to it, you would stitch that now too. Whatever the design is for the front, stitch that now. Now you see the basting stitch in the beginning of the design for this particular hot pad. It's Santa's face. And I know that the next step is going to stitch down the red portion for his hat. So now I'm going ahead with this one. If you have a PDF step list for yours, just follow all the steps for the front design. My next piece of advice is specific to this zipper bag, but it will apply to any not zipper bag, this hot pad, but it does apply to any other design that you create in the hoop that you use a piece of fabric for an applique. So I tacked down this red piece of fabric for Santa's hat, and it's going to stitch a satin line right across here, coming up. But when I trimmed for this applique piece, I did not trim around the edge of the project. This is because after you cut out your project and turn it inside out, these pieces of the applique that weren't secured by a satin stitch could easily come out of your final stitch and show fraying. So you don't want to trim this until you're done. Only trim along the line that is going to get a satin stitch that's going to be treated like an applique. And now I'm just going to stitch the remaining details for this bag in particular. I keep saying bag. For this hot pad in particular, this one is Santa's face. So I can see by my step list that I've got some quilting, and then I've got a flesh tone that I chose for his face and his eyes, etc. The next step is going to be to place a piece of elastic or rickrack or cotton fabric that you've made into a little loop to hang your hot pad. If desired, this step is not, it is an optional step. So I'm going to take my piece of elastic. It needs to be, make sure it's heat resistant. Everything you use for these projects needs to be heat resistant. So I'm going to use this piece of elastic, and you're going to place the inside of the loop facing the inside of the project with the raw sides facing outwards. Remember that this will be flipped right side out at the end of your stitching. So I'm going to tape that down at the top center of my hot pad. You can put it wherever you want. You can put it at the corner, on the side, it doesn't matter. Now we're going to move to the last step of our hot pad design. You can see here that I've got all the details of this one finished on the front. And now I'm going to go over to my ironing board or my pressing surface, and I've got the 2 back pieces for this envelope style hot pad. Now one thing that I don't have right now because I ran out is the fusible seam tape that a lot of people put on the inside of these envelope pieces. You fold just about maybe 3/4 of an inch over and press it, and you should really use something to press it down right there to keep that stable. I don't have that right now in my sewing room, so I just pressed these down at what will be the top and the bottom of those envelope pieces, and now I'm going to take this over to my hoop. Now we're going to place those envelope pieces on our hot pad. So you want to make sure that you cover both ends with your backing pieces, they go right side down because we're going to flip it inside out at the end of the project, or right side out. Is that right side out? I'm talking to my kid. He just came in here to hang out while I finish my tutorial. So then you place them like so. This print did kind of have an orientation, so I did it the same way as my Santa face. Those cookies were, and some of the words were that way, so I put them top to bottom, just like the Santa face that I stitched. So now these are overlapping each other at a ratio that I'm comfortable with, maybe like an inch. And now I'm going to pin those down at the corners and stitch the last step of the hot pad. Okay, now here's what the top of the hoop of our finished project looks like, and here's what the back looks like. I've got that little extra stabilizer. I usually cut it off last to conserve as many scraps of stabilizer as possible. So now, if you've made sure that everything is neat and finished and there's no mistakes that you need to redo in the hoop, you can remove your project from the hoop and trim around the edge, leaving approximately whatever seam allowance you usually use, maybe a third of an inch or so. Once your project is trimmed around the edges, you want to reach inside the envelope flaps on the back and turn your project right side out. Here's your hot pad turned right side out. Now you're going to take it over to your pressing surface and press it. Get that back nice and straight and get those wrinkles out. And finally, after your hot pad is pressed and everything is nice and flat and straight, you're going to take your fabric tape or your fusible seam tape, and you're going to use it according to the manufacturer's instructions to seal that envelope on the back. So I put mine on the top pocket, or the top envelope side of the back. You got to make sure it sticks to that fabric. And then you can remove it, or you can use fusible like Steam-A-Seam, I think it's called. There you go. So now that is closed and this is ready to use.